This looks clean and I want it to be focused on what the intent of this podcast is. So we have this very easy, very chill, and we're happy with it right now. So the next thing I did was determine a short description for the podcast, and it actually ended up turning out to be our intro. Now, this actually happened before the cover art, so I want to make sure I'm accurate on the timeline, but I'm going to show you exactly what I did for this as well. I'm doing what you would do if you are new to this, or if you are an experienced podcaster looking for a different podcast because you think the one you have is dead. Whatever it is, no problem. So we're going to check out ChatGPT. Let me go ahead and just make it an example for what we're doing. Hey, can you help me with an SEO-friendly podcast, short description for my podcast? I can give you context. That helps. Boom. Of course, I'd be happy to. Okay, here we go. Please provide me with the context and any relevant or key words you'd like to include. The podcast is based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Okay, here's what I told it. And of course, it gave me what I needed in 2 seconds. I told him where it's based out of, who it's hosted by, what it is, why we're doing it, what our hope for it is, when episodes are coming out, and where it's available. And I said, keywords are up to you. Let's see. Discover Wilmington's hidden gems with Rich and Lee Cardona. Join us every Thursday as we dive into the heart of the Cape Fear region, spotlighting local businesses that make this area shine. From mouth-watering eateries, love that, to unique boutiques. We're guide to the best of Wilmington, North Carolina, whether you're seeking a local fresh adventure or a curious traveler, blah, blah, blah. It's great. I forgot to say the title. Welcome to Cape Fear Calling, your insider's guide to Wilmington, North Carolina. Let's try some critiques. I'll just say we are not focusing solely on Wilmington. Also, can you make it a little more fun? Get ready to explore on Cape Fear Calling, hosted by the dynamic duo Rich and Lee Cardona. Our video podcast is your ticket to uncovering the Cape Fear region's coolest spots, from quirky shops to delectable eats. We're your partners in discovering hidden gems that go beyond Wilmington, North Carolina. Blah, 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 blah. That's all I need. However long it takes me to read that is enough for an introduction. Now, let me talk to you about introductions. This is a short description, but you can usually just read your short description, and that is your introduction for the podcast. If you have what's called a static introduction, the static introduction for your podcast means it's going to play every single episode. This is exactly the process I used, by the way. Like, it took me 10 minutes, and then I got my Zoom recorder here and I plugged my microphone into it and I recorded it. So it was a little painful, but I adjusted a couple of things on the fly and then that was it. Now, here's the thing. After I listened to it, I was like, wow, that's kind of a long introduction. It absolutely covers everything we want, but it's a little long. And I'm not a favor of long anything in terms of the beginning of a podcast, because it's always an opportunity for your potential listener or viewer, if it's a video podcast like this one, to leave, to bounce, to say, I'm out of here, before they even get a chance to really get to know you. So I'm a favor of shorter. Shorter is definitely better, but this is very, very good for a short description. I guess I didn't clarify what a short description was, but when someone goes to your podcast, it's literally just going to be the summary. Do you want it SEO friendly so it's searchable? Yeah, but podcasting and SEO, I don't think that relationship is as strong as people think, but that's fine. I'll have experts on to talk about it at some point. So I got my cover art, which took me 20 minutes. I got the short description, which I used as an intro, and I recorded that. And then after hearing it back, decided that's probably not what we need to do. So the next thing that we're going to do, Ann and I decided we're going to do dynamic intros. Okay. I talked to you about a static intro, the same intro every time. And the purpose of a dynamic intro is to have a custom one at the beginning of each episode. So instead of having people listen to the same thing every time, we'll just give them a preview of what it's about. There's a couple ways you could do this, but here's the plan. 1 week it'll be her, 1 week it'll be me, and we'll say something like this. Let's say we're talking about the Italian restaurant Floriana in downtown Wilmington, which is our favorite Italian spot. Just off the top of my head, a dynamic intro. It's customized for this episode, so it's not generic. Hey everyone, welcome back to Cape Fear Calling. Today we are sitting down with Dean, who is a director of operations at our favorite Italian place in Wilmington, where I have absolutely demolished lasagna time after time. But the really cool thing about this is their balcony seating, and it overlooks the Cape Fear River, and you have a view of the bridge. So there's so many good things going on here. But Ann and I are there. We're going to talk about all the dishes. We're going to talk about the history of the building, and we're going to talk about what you need to do to get that awesome high priority seating. Boom, something like that. I'm trying not to waste any time. And next thing we know, we're right into the podcast. Now, I said there's a couple ways you can do this. What we like to do with our clients, and basically all of them do this, is we find an awesome, juicy clip from the podcast itself, and we place it at the very beginning of the episode. It's the first thing they hear. So it might be a clip of Dean saying something along the lines of, we prioritize our customer service here, but we also want to make sure that everyone understands that these are some of the freshest ingredients they're going to find in all of Wilmington in everything that we make. Maybe something like that. That doesn't sound super juicy, right? But we would find a really awesome clip and it would be of them, of the guest. Right after that, it would be that dynamic or static intro. Okay. Again, the static one is what we got from ChatGPT. It's basically the short description. You want it to be short, not long. Again, that could lead a listener to leave, or you could insert immediately after that clip, that cool clip. It could be the dynamic intro, which in this case would be Ann or I, and we're just kind of giving people a heads up. And by the way, here's a pro tip. Make that clip something from far down in the podcast, meaning past the middle point of the podcast, because I have learned, and this could just be me, but whenever someone hears that clip, they want to get to that clip at some point. Like they will listen just to catch up to that clip. So if the clip is from the beginning of the podcast and they hear it in the first 2 minutes after they start listening, then it's almost like less of an incentive. They didn't like pass the test. Again, this could totally be my imagination, but I absolutely believe if it's further down in the podcast, they're going to want to listen until they get to that point at least. You've learned 2 things so far, and that is how to get your short description, and that is from ChatGPT. You've learned 3 things. How that short description can become one of 2 types of introductions, which is a static introduction or a dynamic introduction. Could give you ideas for that. And the third thing we learned, which was the first thing I presented, was the cover art. And all I did was go on Instagram, I DM someone, and that's it. Now, here's something funny I wanted to mention that has nothing to do with anything technical. And that is, once I started seeing all the kind of Cape Fear and Carolina Coast accounts, I was like, oh man, there's people with tens of thousands of followers posting awesome pics. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of competition. And I immediately was like, competition, who cares? Like, we're getting to go sit and meet with these people and learn about their business, learn about the history. We're going in person with a video podcast. It feels professional. It's not just literally like a picture of a business or a picture of a plate of food that someone got at a restaurant. We're literally in the back of the restaurant watching it being made. I just had to remind myself what is unique about what we're doing. And we'll have a beautiful, beautiful co-host. And then there's me. So it's just a cool experience. So if it's different for them, it's going to be different for the viewer or the potential listener or audience, Instagram follower, Facebook connection, whatever it is. So that was just something I wanted to share with you. So just don't get in your own head about the competition out there. Okay, the last thing that I should mention, and I'm going to try and just wrap up here in a second. I said I recorded the introduction, but I need music. So before I outsource that, for music, I just went to artlist.io. There's a lot of different companies out here, but the whole thing is you want to get royalty-free music, meaning you're not getting Red Hot Chili Peppers or Dr. Dre or whatever. Like, you can't use that stuff because of copyright infringement. So you go to a site like this, which gives you royalty-free music. Now I go to music here and there's a lot of different options I have available to me. I click on mood. It could be like uplifting, epic, powerful, exciting, happy, funny, carefree, etc. Okay, sexy. I mean, like, there's just a lot of crazy stuff in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and click carefree as part of like my filter. It's part of the keywords. So the video theme, I'm just not going to do anything for that because I'm not worried about the video. I'm just kind of worried about background music while I'm reading my introduction. So I'll just leave that. Now, if I'm going to make a video trailer, which we kind of do want to do, maybe I'll come back and we'll have different music for a video trailer we record, but we have not done that yet. Genre, acoustic, ambient, blues, children, etc. So is there anything that I want here? Funk, I like hip hop, so I'll put hip hop, holiday, lo-fi, and chill beats. I'll just put that for now because it's a vibe out here, man. It's slow and it's chill. Instrument, I'm not going to really pick anything there. And here's a big one, vocal and instruments. We just want instrumentals. We don't want vocals in the background while we have an instrumental. The whole point is just to have some cool background music while we're reading the introduction. Like I said, we're going to have dynamic ones, Ann and I. So of course, we don't ever want any vocals to be around, but we want music that'll be in the background every time. You could go and get different music every time, but that's not going to be consistent for your audience. I'm clicking on instrumental and you could sort by staff picks or beats per minute. Duration doesn't matter because you're only going to use like however long your intro is, which hopefully is around 30 seconds. So let's see what we got. Hey, welcome to Cape Fear Calling. I'm your host, Rich Cardona and Ann Cardona and da 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 da. Kind of like that. Here, let's do this. Get ready to explore on Cape Fear Calling, hosted by the dynamic duo Rich and Ann Cardona. You get the idea. So I had put out something. I hired them for a project, gave them a couple little tests, and then I was like, hey, I wanted to personally check in, but I have a couple things you can do for me, please. Personally check in is because I had my team signing her stuff. So I basically gave her my introduction that I read, the outro that I read, no music or anything behind it. Then this is our first episode. So I gave her the mic of one of the guests, the mic of the other guest, then Ann's audio, and then my audio. First episode of my podcast, 4 people, 2 podcast mics, 2 lavalier mics, unfortunately. And these are on location, so not in the studio. So I was basically giving her essentially a heads up that like it's going to be kind of noisy because we were at a restaurant. So then, hi, when do you need it back? Do you have a reference for the episode? I don't know what she meant by that, but I gave her the background music. Please make versions with these tracks in the background for each intro and outro. And then I told her when I needed it by, and she said she got the reference. She read something different. So that's it. She got it back, and I could maybe play it for you. Hey, welcome to Cape Fear Calling. We are your hosts, Ann and Rich Cardona, and we want to take you on a journey through the Cape Fear and Wilmington area, exploring the best local gems, meeting the faces. So you got the idea. I think we kicked it back for the intro. I felt like the music was too long, the build up. So that's it. Another thing I could tell you about was the thumbnail for the YouTube video. I shouldn't get ahead of myself, but I'm just showing you. I did the same thing. All I did was go on here, find someone, and here we go. And I actually had 2 people do them. So that way I had a couple options, and here's a couple versions. And that's it. A couple other tips and tricks in there, but hopefully this was useful. I still got some work to do. Today's date I'm recording this is a Friday. It's 8/18/23. It's August 18th, 2023. I started reaching out to people on April 20th, and we had some good momentum, and then just like life got busy. But this is so I can relate to you. You want to be a part-time podcaster, not a full-time podcaster. So I'm completely mimicking this. This is not how we operate with clients whatsoever, but I just wanted to hook you up the way it would be if I were in your shoes. So that's what we're doing. All right. We'll see you next time. I forgot to say, obviously, if you haven't subscribed or anything like that, subscribe. If this is good information, share it with a friend so that way they could get a benefit of the value as well.